Today we have Ben Tasker, lead by example at WeCan. Ben, thank you for being here. You are a data and AI expert, educator, training and upskilling people to transform workplaces and lead with responsible AI adoption. As the former Dean of AI at Southern New Hampshire University, you pioneered programs in applied AI. Ben, talk to us about your work in your own words.
Well, thanks for having me on the show, Stephanie. I'm excited to be here and to help educate your listeners on what I like to call the AI between times. That's that awkward time period we're all living through together. We're not exactly into the robot future, and we're still attached to some of those older processes that we're dependent on, but they're being influenced and sometimes adapted by artificial intelligence. I have over 10 years of experience of AI and workforce transformation experience. I help organizations and individuals develop strategies and align that strategy to individual goals, upskilling, and helping navigate that AI revolution. So thanks again for having me.
Ben, when I think of AI, I immediately think about retraining, upskilling. There'll be an enormous amount of people all around the world that will need to potentially change careers, upskill their careers, definitely learn how to adopt AI. So talk to us about this time that we live in where you're really instrumental in helping companies and people navigate this. What are your main learnings? What do you see happening?
No pun intended. It's kind of a data science problem. Uh,
Yeah.
and I underestimated this next part, but it's also change management. And I kind of like to think of it like a three-layer cake.
Mm-hmm.
And the first layer of the cake is the foundational layer. It holds the entire cake together. And the foundational cake and the bottom can be individuals that might not understand what artificial intelligence is. They might not even know what and how to use it at their job. Maybe they've never heard of it. And then you have the second layer. And the second layer is individuals that have some sort of specialization. So that can be finance, that can be project management, it can be a data scientist. It doesn't necessarily have to be a data or AI aligned specialization, but maybe they know a little bit more about AI. They're using generative AI to help them at work. Or in some cases, the data scientists, they know how to code and how to implement advanced products.
Hmm.
And then at the top of the cake, the frosting where everything sits are the executive leaders, maybe right below the executive leaders. And it's important to have them think of AI as a system. So not just a point solution where you're just putting in AI one part of the company, how all these intricate parts of the organization that already exist, the old workflows that we're attached to, how can you embed AI into the entire system to make it more efficient? So one way I like to help organizations think of this concept of upskilling and reskilling is trying to find pain points at that foundational level, since that's what really holds the entire organization together. And some of these pain points might be automation. So maybe they need a timesheet automated. Maybe they need automatic project updates. Maybe they haven't experienced vibe coding where you can use AI to code elements of an application. Maybe there's a lot of spreadsheets, and just merging the spreadsheets to work off of every day can help influence business decisions. All these all these little things that are point solutions over time after having conversations can add up to an entire system. And then I bring those pain points to the executive level, the top tier, the leaders, to help show them where the pain points are for the employees and how upskilling and reskilling can not only fix those pain points, but also enable the rest of the organization. And then the specialist track, since you already have embedded talent and some of these individuals are already pretty advanced with data science or artificial intelligence, you then have subject matter experts that can help with the upskilling initiative. You also have subject matter experts that, even though they're a little bit more advanced, can answer some questions if other individuals at one of the top or lower tiers have any of those questions. So it's really an ecosystem that you need to create. It's a feedback loop. And everything I just described, I did in a very short amount of time, but it really takes 18 to 36 months to properly
Wow.
enable your organization
Mhm.
to do AI. So I just want to make sure that's clear as well.
Ben, how much time do companies have now? I mean, it seems that, this tech revolution is happening, and it's happening at such a fast speed that every day we hear new things, and every day we feel, whenever I think, okay, I maybe got the hang of adopting some of those tools, and then the next day I realize I'm already so behind again. How can we as humans and as workforce and as leaders of companies handle this this time warp that just seems to sort of catch us on our back foot at all times?
Time's a major component. So when OpenAI launched, just within the first 5 hours, they had over 1 million users.
Mm,
That's unprecedented. There's never been a higher interaction with a product to date. And I just think that adoption and that interaction is going to increase because AI is just going to become more mainstream. This is when a lot of individuals at the time haven't even heard about artificial intelligence.
mm,
We also have to understand that at the same time that these tools, products, even these podcasts, one launches every 30 minutes with some sort of AI enablement or
yeah,
modification to them.
yeah.
So just by the time we're done with this podcast, we'll see a news article or a product or something launch with the word AI in it. So that's how fast this is happening. So that's why I like to tell organizations and individuals to not really think about tools because the tools are going to
Mm,
keep changing, to really think about skills. And there's many different ways we can think about skills. They're called skills taxonomies. Not going to bore your listeners with those taxonomies, but a really good one that I do want to talk about is the World Economic Forum's. And the
yeah.
reason why the World Economic Forum skills taxonomy is so fantastic is because it really just has two skill lanes, human skills and AI skills.
Mm,
AI skills, the technical skills that individuals might be accustomed to, it could be coding, but they don't really call them technical skills anymore. They specifically call them AI skills.
yeah.
That's because over time, AI is going to be able to do those skills really well. But right now, in current time, uh, they pay a premium. And it's important to learn those skills. So that's systems thinking, analytical thinking, again, coding, implementing chatbots, implementing data sets, making sure you can make data-driven decision making. So any technical skill would fall into the AI skill.
Yeah.
Then we have human skills. What's beautiful about human skills is that AI can resemble these skills. Uh, it can pretend to be empathetic, for example. It can give you leadership advice, so it can resemble a leader. But those skills are distinctly human. And unfortunately, a lot of those skills today in society are undervalued. So folks often don't emphasize on them. So think about like
Yeah.
teaching, for example. Teaching is probably one of the most important jobs in society. If you
Mm,
think of the five most influential people in your life, they're probably either a teacher, a coach, or somewhere in your academic career, most often than not. And now with AI really growing in that technology space, I think humans will be able to become more human again and start
mm,
to focus on that human element. So at the organizational level, bringing this back to your question, it's really important to think about the skills, not just tools, because the
mm,
tools are going to keep changing.
mm. And I love that you spoke about those human soft skills that we have sort of called soft skills that are really coming to the forefront again as something that's really important to have. Ben, talk to us as your role as the dean of AI of a university. What did that mean, and what does it mean to train the next generation in AI and data and all the areas that we were speaking about, those technical skills? Because if I look at my children, they're mostly grown up, but their school education most certainly had none of it.
And I think that change is still going to happen, but at least in the United States, education's mostly bound by time, especially
Mm,
higher education. So in higher education, a student goes to school for 4 to 6 years and they get what's called a bachelor's degree. Then a master's might take 1 to 2 years. And
yeah.
then there's doctoral degrees, and those could take 4 years plus.
Mm,
Medical degrees sometimes fall into the doctoral degree. So there's specialized training. And the more specialized you get, the more niche the education becomes. With AI, the shelf life of a skill is going to decrease. So right now,
Mm.
the average life is about 5 years. So if I go learn Python coding, for example, I can stay current with it, but I don't need to go learn a whole new coding language probably for 5 years just because it's becoming mainstream. Now with
Mm.
AI, I argue that skills, the shelf life staying 2 years, and that's probably going to begin to shorten even more because a lot of information's at your fingertips now. So organizations can learn more quickly, and so can individuals. And because universities and higher education is based upon time, and it takes so long to produce a student, there's also this other critical compounding problem where the workforce also needs to train their employees, and they
Mm.
usually send them to a university, but they
Yeah.
just don't have the time to wait anymore
Yeah.
because, to your point earlier, artificial intelligence is changing very rapidly.
Yeah.
So how are you going to upskill your workforce in time? So one of my jobs and objectives at the university was to think of how education could change. And
Mm.
one of those ways is what's called more short form learning. And a short form learning could be a micro credential, it could be a badge, it could be a workshop. And but it's offered by a university, and they can range from 4 hours to 6 hours. It's a cohort based learning opportunity. It can count for credit, so it's a stackable, so they can stack into credits if you want, but that's not really the goal. If you want
Mm.
to, you can. But if you don't, that's okay too. And that allows for more flexibility of the product. It allowed students to work in cohorts. So success measures were a little bit different. It got individuals to either come in with their whole team, which is pretty fun to see these individuals learn AI from a team perspective, or they were matched with other partners and companies and that was also pretty cool because you could see how other companies were doing things. But
Mm.
it also leads to application. So instead of just writing papers, doing quizzes, doing exams, the common things that a product at a university typically looks like, reading, like, yes, all those things are still important, but with AI, they're a little bit different. So for example, AI can verbally quiz you and put a time box around it, and you're talking to it like we're talking now, and it
Mm.
can assess your level of knowledge. Wasn't really done before, but AI is already pretty good at that, and it's going to get better at that. Now, there's still human assessment in the course, there's still a faculty member, but it allows, without interacting with AI and using it, it's really hard to implement it, to think about it from that systems perspective. So that's just one of many use cases. And then that would fit into a program eventually if individuals wanted to transfer that knowledge in, and the programs would operate like they normally do. They would be term based, and then the terms stack on top of one another, and there's a degree conferral. But because degrees might be impacted by this AI revolution, and with all these other changes to society, the demographic population, for example, it's really important to focus on diverse portfolios and product offerings because everything's changing at the same time, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I always think if I go into schools and universities, I always think you have to pick up so many skills from wherever you can and be as diverse as you can, because these are all things you will bring to the table. I'm wondering, Ben, what is your view of the future of AI? What are the next 10 years going to look like? And B, how can young people, university leavers, get ready for those 10 years?
I think the next 10 years in artificial intelligence are really going to be exciting, and we're still going to be navigating that AI between times. So we're not going to be fully out of it yet, just
Mm.
because the next concepts I'm about to name are still being fleshed out. And I
Mm.
think that they're going to be continued to be fleshed out. But AI is more than just generative AI. So the chatbots that we interact with, that's just one form of artificial intelligence. There's quantum AI, there's deep learning, which is physical AI, computer vision, where artificial intelligence can understand roadways, images to make predictions. Quantum AI can lead to new pharmaceutical drugs, for example. It's
Mm.
instead of being a zero or a one, you can be a zero and a one at the same time. So it's a much more sophisticated level of intelligence. It's probably going to surpass human intelligence, believe it or not. It's going to be the first thing that's ever surpassed human intelligence. And that's just the icing on the cake. There's probably going to be robotics and metahumans within the next 10 years. We're probably going to see that this year, actually. 2026 is the year of physical AI. So, with all these different versions of AI happening, universities really have to think about how you're embedding those skills into all programs. The programs may change over time, but by linking it back to skills, it's very easy to change the program versus how a typical program is developed based upon learning objectives.
Mm.
And those learning objectives get more complex over time for the amount of time that the student's in. So a PhD student is a master technically at a skill level for
Mm.
whatever they're getting their doctorate in, where a bachelor's degree student might just be aware or might be implementing an AI technology. But leveling those skills throughout any program is important. So what will that look like? What could that look like? You could focus on those AI skills and human skills at the same time. So it doesn't really
Mm.
matter if you're in a STEM program or not. You're still learning similar skills. And I would argue that the STEM programs probably have to incorporate more human skills, leading projects, focusing on communication, team-based
Mm.
projects,
Mm.
uh, building portfolios to build a personal brand. And then a non-technical major is going to have to invest in prompt engineering, making sure that you understand how to build AI chatbots, because a lot of organizations are going to have that need, understand responsible and ethical AI, essentially what not to do with artificial intelligence and what the risks are, how to implement it, even how to make basic content is going to become extremely important to understand because AI can enable you, but there's also some trade-offs with that enablement. And then there's more advanced forms of artificial intelligence, vibe coding, for example, where you can make full applications with artificial intelligence, that is going to have a job in the future. And then there's the more advanced versions of AI. Does your university have a quantum computer lab? Does your
Mm.
university offer robotics training? Is your university primarily online? And how can you offer some of those opportunities to a primarily online population?
Mm.
Because not all AI is digital. In fact, less companies are investing in digital AI because there's so much of it. It's a saturated market. So
Mhm.
you have to think about that as well. But the skills will be similar. It's just the application of those skills are going to keep changing.
Right. Ben, so what do you feel universities and schools need to do to catch up with this in a little bit more of a timely fashion? Because I have a 21-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 16-year-old, and the 21-year-old, as part of his uni education, is definitely learning sort of using AI to analyze, things, companies, business cases, whatever it is. The 19-year-old really hasn't had any of it in her school education, and even the 16-year-old, there's nothing changing for them at all. And I mean, this is the UK. Maybe that looks a bit different in the US, but I'm not sure. The one thing that I know is that communication is going to be a really big thing. How to communicate, not only with other people, but really how to communicate the things that you want an AI tool to do. So to know exactly how to package and inform your whatever that is, language model, whatever you're using, as a sort of, normal person who hasn't studied data or or AI or any of the sort of more techie things. Um, how do you see this working out?
I think two things need to happen to cause the change to really embrace the skills that individuals like your children need to capture. Well, one change is that workforce needs to embrace short form learning,
Mm.
invest in stackables for continuing education, understand that skills are the future. Degrees are still relevant. I don't think degrees are going away. I don't want to make it sound like degrees aren't relevant, especially if you're going into medicine, or any of those other specialized fields. They're linked to specific outcomes and time, and you need that time to get the credential. And I don't think even with AI that's going to change. that
Mm,
much.
mm,
Nursing as well. Anything to do with a hospital, really, I don't think is going to change all that much. It's going to become more AI enabled. But for any other job, uh, we really have to think about now shifting over to the university, the product that it offers. So a product
mm,
mindset. So
mm,
typically there's a textbook, there's the quizzes, there's exams, there's papers, there's projects, maybe there's presentations, maybe there's an internship. All that can happen simultaneously with artificial intelligence. So potentially your 4-year curriculum could be taught in a year or two, and then you
mm,
can add more depth to your current curriculum to keep focusing on those human and AI skills.
yeah.
So it sounds a little counterintuitive, but by decreasing the time and focusing on the skills, you're actually
Mm,
increasing the time because you're going to be able to identify the gaps where the students need the most help and where the
mm,
organizations and the workforce need the most help. And then you can modify your programs to meet that instead of trying to go out and survey the workforce. That takes probably 6 to 8 months at a university.
mm,
Then attaching that to objectives, then attaching those objectives to courses, it becomes more iterative. So it's really leaning into
mm.
the agile values. I know it might be a little odd for me to compare education to a product, but it's something individuals consume.
Yeah.
It's just like a mobile app or anything else. So
Mm,
it is a product in my mind.
yeah.
And I think the product has done a very good job up to date. But with
Yeah.
all these compounding factors, there needs to be a little bit of change.
Yeah. There needs to be big change. Yeah. Ben, what do you feel matters most to you and how do you want to matter?
What matters most to me and how do I want to matter? I really embrace the human, I've always embraced the human side of artificial intelligence. So my upskilling and reskilling journey started when I worked in a hospital. I was tasked with assessing clinical offices with patient volumes. And what I didn't realize at the time, I was a little bit younger, was that was really a management tactic to try to figure out which physician offices might not be as popular or in demand as
Mm,
others.
hmm.
And I also was a little naive where I thought because this was the digital age, it was a long time ago, but not that long ago, that this healthcare system had all of the data that they needed to help make these decisions.
Yeah.
That was furthest from the truth. So I had to
Hmm.
physically go out to the doctor's offices. I had to meet with the physicians. Some of them handed me notes. Some of them
Wow.
told me to go into their filing cabinet to figure out the data. It was not as straightforward as
Mm,
I thought it would be. But that also really helped teach me the human side of these problems and the amount of effort it takes to even before you get to the AI to accomplish informing the data. Uh, Data-driven decision making is the oil to any AI algorithm. It also encouraged me to go get my master's degree because I realized that all organizations are essentially run in the backdrop of data, and you
hmm.
need to know how to use the data science to
Yeah.
implement any algorithm. And that data science program really helped me learn the AI algorithms. Yes, it's called data science, but I promise the algorithms have not changed. It's math. They've been around for a very long time. They're just implemented more quickly today.
Hmm.
And those algorithms can then be implemented to impact humans. So right after my master's degree, I went to go work at a school, and that university needed help with student retention. Uh,
Hmm.
One way to look at student retention is deploying resources sooner than you normally would. So tutoring, maybe moving the student to a different program, maybe moving them to a different school, a different professor, whatever the student needed for help. And that was an algorithm. And,
Yeah.
and I can promise you, we helped more than just one student,
Hmm.
but that algorithm with the thousands of students that help was really, it feels awesome. It's like, well, I'm using AI, but I'm also helping these individuals. And then that led me to go work in a healthcare system, now change the word from learner to patient, different population, yes, similar algorithm. It still makes individuals on that project feel great because you're helping humans get better. So what I'm hoping folks get out of artificial intelligence is if you're resistant to it, maybe open your mind up a little bit and realize that there are some good aspects to it. There are many negative aspects to it. I'm not saying that we should have our blinders on, but there's some positive aspects to it. And I really do think that AI will make humans more human again, because by taking some of the time out of the tasks that we don't like doing, we can focus on the tasks that we do like doing. So in bringing this back to a university, maybe that there's an AI tutor in the course that's working with the students. It's still led by a human. They're checking the output. There's still human feedback, humans like humans, but you can take on larger courses. You can shorten the courses. You can offer more information in that short form learning. So right there, it can become cheaper. Our education in the United States is extremely expensive. It's not like the UK whatsoever. So it can become more accessible. It can become faster paced. You can learn more. And that's just one domain, one industry, right? Take in healthcare. Healthcare is extremely expensive in the United States.
Yeah.
There's a lot of concern that AI is going to replace physicians. There's some articles that were published recently showing that CEOs think that. But anytime a machine learning algorithm or an AI algorithm has tried to replace clinical staff, the reverse effect has happened. More patients are seen, and they actually need more caretakers. A relevant case is radiology. For the last 3 years, individuals have been talking about radiology going away, and it's counterintuitive. That career has grown. So understand that we're still in that between times. It's a learning game. I understand the resistance. A lot of more negative news than positive news, especially around AI. But there is that positive mindset, and I think by focusing on the skills, however this goes, everyone listening will be prepared because they'll have the skills they need to change with the technology instead of the technology changing you.
Yeah. And then it's not such a scary thing anymore. Ben, what do you feel can one do to, you know, navigate these times responsibly, as in, bring about responsible AI that doesn't lead us or humanity into the rabbit hole of extinction, which is what some people think?
There's definitely some guardrails folks should consider around artificial intelligence. So remember, AI is an input-output system. The input's the data and the prompt, and the output is it producing what you think or what it thinks is an accurate answer. That's the prediction. There could be some errors with that output. Think about images, think about text, think about a news article that you've currently seen. That there's many cases of where AI probably wasn't used in the best case. But I really like to teach individuals to stay in the loop. So full automation is capable with artificial intelligence. Agents can be fully autonomous, but before just jumping to that fully autonomous state, you really need to work and develop with the artificial intelligence. It's a process. Yes, it will save you time in the end, but up front, it might take a little bit more time to set up. So thinking about a process, let's pretend we want to start automating client calls so that the transcript from the client calls is summarized and then maybe put into a customer management system. So it's given a persona, and you can use that data to either practice with or to find similar clients. Before you get to all those steps, how are you currently taking the calls? How are they recorded? Are all these calls not super like private? Like what level of classification do they have? If you haven't classified the calls, maybe you should do that, because not every call should be recorded or transcribed. Potentially that could add risk. And then where are these documents stored? What's the knowledge base that these are in? Are they all over the place? Is there a common SharePoint? How are you labeling the data? So how are you labeling the file? What's in it? And then lastly, now that you have everything set up, then how do you put AI on top of that system? So which AI tool are you using? What are the security metrics behind it? How are you going to assess that? You put prompts in and you can double check them. And then finally, once it provides that output, how are you storing that output? Because that output is also, it's data, right? So data does have some sort of risk to it. So a lot of individuals, they might just go to a tool, put in the transcript, right? Like this is simple to set up, but by thinking a little bit more cautiously and slowly, I'm all for innovation, but taking the proper steps, right? Like just not using a chainsaw method all the time is increasingly more important. especially if you own your own business or you own a small business, those are probably the most, at risk because they don't have a huge legal team. There's all
Yeah.
these different apps all the time. We're not really sure how these tools are using the data. And sometimes advertisement might hit you at the right time, like, oh, this tool might save my problems, but it's going to cause more problems. So think about your problem and the system around it holistically. Like even if you want to prioritize your email differently, where does your email live? Do you really
Mm,
need another app for that, right? Like, because
mm,
this stuff seems cheap, but you keep adding on a $20 a
yeah.
month subscription,
Yeah.
it could be 200, 300, $400
Mm,
by the time you're
mm,
done with it. So
yeah.
I would bring this back to thinking about a systems-based approach, really understand your own system, understand the risks around that system without AI, and then what new risks are added when AI is introduced to that system, especially with the change management.
Yeah. Ben, um, if I'm not sure if you have children, but what would you say to teenagers? What should they concentrate on? What should they apply for? What should they think about of where to sort of, not everyone is a data scientist or can be a data scientist. What would you say to young people listening?
For young people listening, again, very for AI. So this might sound counterintuitive, but I would try to limit your AI usage. I do think that AI can limit creativity and critical
Mm,
thinking in some cases. So if you're just going to any application for answers or to do your homework for you, I don't think that's the best way to use artificial intelligence. That's an irresponsible way to use artificial intelligence. But
mhm.
on the flip side, if you need to, if you have a different learning style than what's provided to you, AI can produce audio, it can produce videos, it can find you videos to help supplement content. I would still limit my usage around it, but setting up those methodologies is a skill. You have to learn how to prompt engineer.
Yeah.
A tool like Notebook LM could be very beneficial. You can save time from it. Uh, I would also recommend for parents out there reviewing what younger individuals are using AI for because it gets super personalized and sometimes overly personalized. There's been some instances where it's too personal and the guardrails don't check that
Mm,
personalization.
mm, mm,
Um, Especially around advice. So a lot of teenagers are talking to AI now because it's always available, and sometimes it doesn't respond the best way as it should.
yeah.
Um, so understanding that it's a risk, it can hurt your learning instead of enable your learning,
Mm,
and then thinking that by learning these skills and learning them appropriately, I think AI is going to impact every job eventually. So don't worry about the job, think about the skills.
mhm. Ben, if I had to ask you what the takeaways are of your life and work so far, sort of the main learnings, what would that be as a
The,
human?
as a human,
Yeah.
don't underestimate other human connections. Understand that any change is technically change management. Everybody gets a little bit nervous around change. It's totally normal. When I went to go get my master's degree, change management was not in the curriculum. I
Mm,
had no idea what change management was until I started implementing algorithms and getting people to use them and how to connect more with people. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that even if something's super technical, if you're fully pledged in and you've been in STEM to really embrace that human side, communication, leadership, making a project portfolio, more than just a GitHub repo, maybe even producing a website,
mm,
understanding to develop your personal brand. Um, that human connection piece is something that I think is taught, but it's sparsely taught. Invest more into that. It has paid dividends, and most AI complexities are really just human complexities. So if you can understand humans, you're going to be able to navigate any of the AI complexities that are associated with that.
mm. Do you feel I mean, you work with clients, right? So when you walk into a client's office, do you have a feeling they come to you with a need? Is there often a situation where you think this client or many of the clients, and I would include myself in that, don't even know what is possible? You know, they might come to you with an issue, but actually one has to think much bigger because you can not only just do this particular issue, but you can actually, you can you can do so much more.
Yeah, so I would frame that as systems thinking. So I think a
Mm,
lot of individuals either hear the word AI, then maybe someone else hears the word AI and they think automation, they can uh, reduce costs, there's an ROI to it.
mm,
It's and a lot of individuals downplay the complexity. And then on top of that, they may not even know their own system. So they might not know a process. So
yeah.
uh, even if it's email routing, right? Or like
Mm,
responding to emails more autonomously, um, that has some system to it currently that a lot people are touching, but they just want to do the AI implementation. I actually think the first part you may not even need an expert for, but I would challenge every individual to flesh out the current system or process that you're trying to
mm,
wrap AI around, because
mm,
AI is essentially a wrapper. You're not replacing a full system. Remember, it's an input output system, so it's using the data you currently have, whether it's sparse all over the place, and then it's producing an output for you. So if you don't even have the data layer set up, where it's formed and there's a common definition to the terms in it, and it's not floating all over the place, it's usable. That oil and setting that up is more valuable than the actual AI that sits on top of it, because that data can be used for many more systems than just the one thing that you're trying to implement. And
mm,
when I frame a problem like that to folks, I really see light bulbs going off, because they realize they're not sure of all the data available to them, how to get access to the data. Is there one main source of truth? Because if you implement AI onto the wrong data and it produces either responses
mm,
or whatever you're doing the AI for, and it's kind of right, but there's that what I call data range. So if you ask three experts in a company, maybe what a figure is, and they give based upon this data set, based upon this, right? They'll give you three different numbers. Those three numbers are probably right, but
mm,
think about it in one data set, right? Like there'll be one source of truth. The problems become simpler.
yeah.
So by taking that step, a lot of folks don't think that it takes too much time. We're already
Mm,
behind, so we have to take more time to figure this out. And it is an organization or individual complexity, right? Like if you own your own business and you don't really understand how you're onboarding your own clients, how can any expert, right? Like I can make suggestions, I can provide you with tools, but this isn't a tool problem. Right, like it's a skills and systems problem.
yeah.
And right, so
Yeah.
that's how I would frame it. I would really go back to the basics. If you can't identify your own system and process, you're probably not able. You're not ready for AI yet.
Yeah. And I think, we used to have very, very sort of specialized roles. And I think that is going to change. We have to know a lot about a lot or a little about a lot, because otherwise we're not going to be able to think about those systems and do the kind of thinking that we need to do if we want to be a leader of our own company or, any venture really. Ben, how did you get to where you are today? When did you realize, I don't know, I'm really good at math, I'm really good at problem solving? How did this start, your journey?
Actually not that great at math, but where I got to where I was realizing that organizations are still in that early stage. They really don't understand their own data, their own systems. I always have had an engineering mind, a systems approach. So
Hmm.
those skills fell a little bit more easily for me than some other skills. Some of those other skills, programming, the algorithms, when I was younger, data science wasn't even a program offering.
Mm,
So you would have to take a math class to learn these algorithms. And yes, that's very helpful, but today you have to also understand how to code the algorithms, and it's more digital. So it was hard for me to map what data science is today to what the product offering was back then. But by
Mm,
waiting a little bit, by learning new experiences, seeing where organizations struggle and how I could use my current skills and then learn some new skills on top of
mhm,
that to
mhm.
help any organization, that's when I really leaned into data science. And I just want to emphasize too, you don't have to be a data scientist to understand artificial intelligence.
No.
But for me, I thought it was a very good fit because it taught me
Yeah.
programming, it taught me project management,
Hmm.
it taught me different programming tools. So I'm more versatile, and
Hmm.
that's something I wouldn't have gotten from a different MBA offering or something like that. So I guess I'm also suggesting not to get a little bit uncomfortable, try to learn something new. I wasn't an expert coder when I started my master's degree, and you don't necessarily have to go and get a master's degree either. There's a bunch of different ways you can learn. You can learn on your own. You can do more short form learning. You can learn from a colleague, take on different projects.
Hmm.
I see that happening a lot, and then you can transition to the job you want, right? So you're growing over time. So that's
Mm.
kind of my story. That's why I chose to go into data science, and then the human aspect became increasingly more important. So essentially, in data science, whether it's me individually or not, it's a stack solution. So you're trying to implement an algorithm for some sort of business problem.
Hmm.
It sounds easy on paper, but how are you training the individuals around the algorithm? How are you modifying this? So all of those skills, yes, they're taught at a small level in programs, but I don't think they're taught at the level in which you need expertise, and that comes from real world learning.
Hmm.
So I would make sure that even if you decide to go and get a degree, make sure you're getting that real world learning as well, because that really helped influence where I am and made me see things more holistically. I can also tell you that my job didn't exist when I was going through
Yeah.
all of the forms of my education.
Yeah.
So don't get super attached to what you think you want to do.
Mm.
Get super attached on what you love doing, and then figure out what that
Mm.
job looks like, especially as things are changing. There's going to be new jobs emerging. There's already prompt engineers, there's AI ethicists. I went to a conference a few weeks ago. There were individuals that were futurists instead of innovation futurists.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a real job title. So don't get so attached. Be flexible, be adaptable, and I think that will provide the best outcome.
Amazing. Ben, so how do you see your roadmap? What do you think are your next 20 years like?
20 years, I could barely do 10. I'm just kidding. I think I'm going to be
Well, you don't have to tell me 20 years, but you can just tell me sort of your plans and goals for the, however long, really.
So my goals over the next X amount of years are to start to focus on more advanced forms of artificial intelligence. I just think there's a lot of investment going on in that area, and uh, though that area is something that really it isn't taught in programs, and it's so advanced that I think you actually have to get a mentor in those fields, and potentially visiting different quantum computer labs across the nation, for example, seeing how they're even thinking about quantum. It's so ill-defined that I'm sure everybody's doing a little bit different, but what's the best approach should I ever be asked to set that up? How are folks thinking about physical AI? There's a lot of organizations that have already invested in it since 2018, like Kodak, for example. And there's other organizations that haven't invested in it at all. But what are some of the lessons learned? So for me, it's finding experts in those very advanced artificial intelligence areas, and then hopefully finding some mentors in those niches that can help educate me on this new and emerging, I guess, subsets of artificial intelligence, I'll call them.
So, if you think about those sort of plans and goals, what would really make your heart race really fast? What it would excite you so much if you could be a part of building that?
I mean, one area I think a lot of organizations are skipping, bringing this back to my current passions, not just the future. Uh, a lot of organizations are skipping the upskilling and reskilling step,
Hmm.
and that step. might not be in the AI roadmap, but by skipping it, 95% of AI implementations are failing.
Hmm.
So I would like to see organizations and individuals develop learning plans. So an organizational learning plan and individual learning plans,
Hmm.
mapping specific skills. And I know it sounds a little bit cheesy, but a lot of both groups aren't really doing it. And
No.
then, and that drives the AI system forward versus trying to implement AI, putting a lot of money into it. It's just a point
Mm.
solution. Maybe that's successful. 95% of the time without all these other things, they're not successful.
Yeah.
Saying it's a waste, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that will make individuals more aware. It will make
Mm.
individuals want to invest more into the higher forms of artificial intelligence, really seeing the potential. I mean, think of a lot of organizations right now are thinking about uh, being less hazardous, more sustainable. Artificial intelligence, and you could develop a AI agent in 8 questions, determine how your workforce is feeling that day, if you need to do any modifications, where do they need help. You could do live systems like that. So instead of doing quarterly surveys or
Mm.
half yearly, you could do it instantly and figure out where your workforce or yourself needs the most help.
Yeah.
So that's just one way
Mm.
AI can help amplify you in your organization. But I think there needs to be a much larger investment into the learning side of the artificial intelligence because even though it's it's more than just a tool, it's impacting every tool that's in the company. Every application now probably has AI in it, and folks don't even understand the risks or how to prompt it.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think that's hugely exciting. And actually, the risk side that you were just speaking about, I think there is a lot of people who just, they sort of plug spreadsheets and information that nobody else should have, and they just put it into some, language model and ask for, an output, and then it's out there, right? And I think that we don't realize that, companies don't realize that, and that's a huge safety thing. So there's so much work to be done. And Ben, as I'm listening to you, I get really excited. I mean, I'm in my mid 50s. I really feel I need someone to give me a roadmap of what I now need to upskill because I don't know. I'm just trying to run and read and use and make my life easier, but really I have no idea what I need to do to really stay current and not completely miss the boat. And I think a lot of people my age feel that way. What would you tell me?
I would start with something simple. So a lot of folks start at the most complex implementation for anything. I think, and this is taking the AI out of it, but there's a theory that when you're trying to implement something yourself, you overthink it and you make it much more complex than it needs to be. Simplify the problem. Start with something easy, maybe something that you already have access to. So a lot of individuals use Outlook for email. If your organization allows, Copilot and Outlook
Mm,
together. A
mm,
really great way to use AI is to summarize your emails, to prioritize emails. It's
yeah.
something that you can check instantly so you can begin to trust it. Another way to start using artificial intelligence is for fun. I think learning can be fun. It doesn't always have to be for work or your future job. The way I started using the large language models is that I took pictures of workout equipment from around my house and I asked AI to make a CrossFit inspired workout so I didn't have to think about it. And
Mm,
then that then turned into not only taking pictures of the equipment, but taking pictures of food in my refrigerator and having AI make recipes that then match the workout. So, right, like supposedly better planning that way, but it's something that I would never have time to do. It's something I consciously think about, but to sit there and track the macros and everything based upon the workout, it's a lot. It takes an extra couple hours a day to think about that. Uh,
yeah.
AI was able to completely automate that process for me, and it took a little bit of time, but because you have to figure out the different foods that you eat and the ingredients that go into it. But that process took 2 weeks to flesh out, and it's still something you can easily automate that. You don't need a special tool for that. Any AI chatbot can send you this regularly. You can schedule it, and it's something I use every day, and that's fun, right? So that's prompt engineering as a skill.
Yeah.
That's using generative AI, so it's multimodal. So taking the correct pictures, input, output,
Mm,
understanding there's risks. So making sure locations turned off, labeling my own images, making sure to tell it, these are my images. I don't want you sharing these images with other folks, putting some guardrails around it. But that then led me to use it for more planning purposes, system implementation, and then using it at work.
Ben, I'm just super thankful for you to be on WeCan, to lead with all this incredible insight that you have, with all these visions that you have. And after this conversation, I'm definitely a lot more excited about AI than before. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on the show.